What if Paul Atreides were still alive?
Good day. Denis Villeneuve's Part 2 of Dune is coming out soon. So when Samantha Klein suggested to me have a look at the Dune movies, I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. That'll be really easy. It'll be David Lynch 1986 movie crap, modern Denis Villeneuve movie way better. Easy, right? But it turns out, no, it wasn't actually quite so easy. Let's have a look.
You are about to enter a world where the unexpected,
Many dangers exist on Arrakis.
the unknown, an incredible secret has been kept on this planet, and the unbelievable meet.
So the 1986 Dune movie cost between $40 and $44 million and box office around about $37-38 million. A notorious flop and didn't really help David Lynch's career. So if we think about the story, it's from the book, it's from Frank Herbert's book, so you can't really take too many liberties with it. But what Lynch did was try and put the whole book in one movie. Now, a lot of people, particularly Denis Villeneuve, because he decided not to do that, would have thought that was a bad idea. It does, there's too much in there, I would have to agree. However, it does give you a sense of completion, which I think is missing from the second movie. We'll come on to that. There was too much, and the first cut was 4 hours apparently, and Frank Herbert actually liked it. He approved of the first version. He thought it was good, but clearly too much for a theatrical release. So producers got involved and shortened it. I would say Lynch went for almost a melodramatic look, which didn't really work for me. The Atreides accommodations were sumptuous, luxurious, royal, and the Harkonnen artificial but plasticky, not really intimidating. We have to remember that David Lynch was actually a painter who only got into movies because he wanted one of his paintings to move in an exhibit. And I think that shows in some of the way he approached that movie. Although the Princess Irulan introduction is in the books, I just didn't like the constant voiceovers in that 86 movie, and I think it took us out of the movie.
Those sounds could be imitated.
I'd know the difference.
Yes, perhaps he would have that.
It wasn't conducive to identifying with the characters. And the monologues I found were kind of cheesy most of the way through. The overall sense I got of the threat in the movie was that it was just weird and disturbing rather than actually threatening, particularly the Harkonnens. They were just kind of like silly and disgusting.
The Duke will die before these eyes, and he'll know that it is I, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, who encompasses his doom.
The music would have expected better from Toto and Brian Eno, but most of the time was ponderous, just kind of too much. The main theme was quite strong. And the movie was nominated for an Oscar for sound, but not for music. So the actors in 86 film, Jürgen Prochnow, who's the Duke Leto, it's almost as if they felt like, oh, well, he's going to get killed pretty soon, so we don't need to spend much time on him. And the whole point about the reactions of Paul and his mother Jessica were to the death of their father and husband, respectively, a great man, a noble leader, and I just don't feel that we got that sentiment. It was kind of like, oh, we didn't really know that guy, now he's dead. Francesca Annis, on the other hand, absolutely beautiful, regal, powerful. I got a bit annoyed with her when everything fell apart and she was a bit pathetic despite the Bene Gesserit training. But if you think about that, yeah, a whole world had just been destroyed, including the lover for whom she disobeyed her church, her superiors, to provide a son. Then she picks it up pretty quickly after that, and she was described as the heart of the movie. I think I would go with that. She was amazing. I mean, just a class act. Really, really impressive. Kenneth Macmillan, Baron Harkonnen. I mean, just doing what the director told him. Silly, disgusting, ridiculous, pantomime, not frightening, except you just don't want to be near the ugly, crazy guy. Fade Routher, Sting, looked amazing, I must say. When he came out of that steam bath, I was like, holy shit, he must have worked out really hard to get in that great shape for this movie, so good on him for that. But it just didn't work for me, and his acting was not great. Well, let's say we didn't see him in much after that, so I guess that was the general consensus, so that was disappointing. Remember, he was supposed to be he was supposed to be partnered with a daughter from the Letos, a female Paul, to produce, they hope, the Kwisatz Haderach, the super being. So he's supposed to be one step away from super being. Didn't really work for me, that one. Kyle MacLachlan, though, was surprisingly good. I mean, was quite boyish at the beginning, grew rapidly, changed, matured, and became a convincing leader and a fighter. So there was a real development in his character. I think that was something that was picked up at the time, that he did really well. So that was great. Interesting point was Sean Young was Chani, most famous for her role as Rachel in Blade Runner. And there's a link there, not only with Denis Villeneuve, but also with Ridley Scott, who was looking at trying to do a movie about Dune, and was one of the people who didn't in the end. So there's quite a strong Blade Runner kind of link there. SFX, etc. in that movie, pretty crap by modern standards, but we'd sort of expect that with almost 35 years of development. Force fields and the shields folding the space, also particularly cheesy. A little bit too close probably to 2001 Space Odyssey, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and wait for the hate mail, but that's a movie I never liked. Watched it as a kid, watched it as an adult, watched it as an older man, still never really liked it. And I have a similar feeling about the space folding with the little blobby grub-like guild navigator. Just, I don't know what that was about. It just put me off the movie. Some of the static scenes were quite good though, the SFX. Maybe they were models, but that actually worked much better. But as soon as things started to move, it didn't work for me. The Sardaukar were just stupid. They were supposed to be the world's elite, most feared fighters, and they were just kind of running around like, WHO health inspectors with green suits on, and not very convincing. The fighting was pantomime. The troops fighting for the Atreides were also supposed to be elite warriors, and yet they just looked like waiters. Someone had handed an AK-47 and said, "Oh, go fight that war." Fight scenes were poor. Maybe it's just how things were in the 80s compared to what we expect now from the likes of John Wick and directors like Christopher Nolan, those big fight scenes, etc. So maybe it's just a sign of the times, but when you rewatch it, it's not very convincing. Ridiculous worm riding. I mean, it looked as fake as Flash Gordon, but without the sense of humor. Flash Gordon was always tongue-in-cheek, so you just enjoyed it, but this was supposed to be cool, and it just failed. Especially like the flying suit of Baron Harkonnen. So it still had its moments, had its characters, notably Lady Jessica. But yeah, it's not too good. But one great line when they're preparing for the battle and they're trying to summon all the worms that they can, and Paul asks, is there any worm sign? And we get Stilgar saying,
"Who shall we have worm sign the likes of which even God has never seen?"
Fantastic line, gotta love that. Okay, so fast forward 2021, Denis Villeneuve, Blade Runner Part 2 director, very gifted guy, and said that this had been his lifetime ambition was to remake, but make a movie about Dune.
There's a crusade coming. Do
Do you often dream things that happen just as you dreamed them?
Yes.
So split it into two parts. Budget $165 million, box office 402. I mean, that's doing it properly. That's a successful movie. Slammed it in there. Everybody happy. The two parts enabled us to see more character development. I think maybe they're learning from like series on TV, where people will binge watch a whole series of 12 hours but won't watch a 2-hour movie. And they say that part of the reason for that is that in those long series you get to know the characters better. You care about them. You feel like you know them, and they become part of your life over these longer periods. So maybe splitting the books into different movies is a better way to do it. And it was smart to start straight from the position of the Harkonnens leaving Dune. We didn't really need all the exposition that was used in the Lynch movie, and he was strapped for time. The movie's about desert. It's not about a planet full of water.
Our warriors couldn't free Arrakis from the Harkonnens. But one day, by Imperial decree, they were gone.
One interesting point there from the direction is that when Paul Atreides is tested by the Reverend Mother with the hand in the box.
What's in the box?
Pain.
There's a difference from the first movie. In the first movie, Paul screams the pain, and the Bene Gesserit, who seems to be experiencing it with him, says something like, "No man ever withstood so much pain." But in this version, Paul goes through the mantra about fear, and then he raises his eyes and he's glaring at her in the pain like he's got through it. He's on the other side and he's beaten her, and I think she realizes it. And that rings more true for me because it implies that he's not just the strongest man with his hand in the box, that there is something really different about him, that he frightened her, like, oh, he is different. We haven't seen this before. So I like that in the direction. Very few voiceovers, so it gives a more immersive feel. I much preferred that. This is not a fairy tale. This is a political, economic, war thriller on a massive scale. And I think we're being set up in the second film for a lot of conflict between Paul and his mother.
You know who you are. Get off me! You did this to me! You Bene Gesserit made me a freak!
As someone who was raised by a Catholic mother and was extremely antagonistic to that from an early age, I got a feeling of what it's like to deal with someone who's trying to condition you and is expecting something from you, but is also trying to be your mother. And I think we're going to see more of that in the second one. And Paul actually shouting back at Jessica in the first movie, saying, you created me, you've made me into something. So imagine being told that you're likely to be responsible for a huge religious war affecting billions of people on hundreds or thousands of planets, and you could be responsible for creating like Iran or North Korea. And we see more of the humanity in that, the conflict, which I think becomes important in the later books. So good direction decisions there, I think. So if we talk about the characters, now we've got Oscar Isaac's Duke Leto, who's a little bit more engaging and given more time so that we can feel the loss in theory. But again, I don't know, it didn't work for me. He was not convincing as the leader of worlds, the rulers of billions of people. So it still didn't work for me. I still think that maybe that element crept in there that, oh, he's going to die soon, so we don't have to do much about this character. So better, but still, like, we know he's going to die. But in other movies where you know that the character is doomed, particularly if the movie starts with the character already dead, you're still rooting for them and you still want them to survive. You're still on their side. But I didn't get that from this one. Same Rebecca Ferguson, Lady Jessica. I mean, just not as drop-dead gorgeous. Yes, a little bit the manipulative priestess. I think probably Herbert based the Bene Gesserit on the Catholic Church, the way that they've been manipulating rulers in Europe and elsewhere for thousands of years, responsible for all sorts of evil, basically, throughout the world. And I think she had a good element of that in her. And I didn't really rate her as an actress until we got to the point where they were captured by the Harkonnens in the Ornithopter, and they're using the sign language, which was faithful to the book and clever. They don't know to gag Paul, but anyway, once she gets free, and she's ruthless, she doesn't sort of tell the Harkonnens, "Oh yes, take us somewhere nice and set us down, or release us, or you will now work for us." She's like, no, just kills them immediately, kicks them out the back, becomes ruthless, becomes fierce. Then she gets a lot more interesting as a character, and then the manipulation element is there, and I think that's then I started standing behind her, saying, "Yeah, this is a good actress, this is a good choice, this is a strong character. Let's see where this is going to go." Timothée Chalamet, multiple award-winning actor. I'm sorry, for me, maybe it's just because I'm British, but he just makes me think of Shampoo. And also at the beginning, he's very skinny. Now, I know Paul as a boy, this discussion with my brother, but he's trained. He's a combat trained prince. He's being groomed and raised for power, which includes fighting, and I just think he's too skinny. We've got 2 years now, sort of in the chronology in the series, and also in real life. You know, he's growing up, he's getting older, so I hope that, okay, he doesn't need to bulk up necessarily, but I think he needs to be more convincing as a warrior. The fight with Janice as well was just a little bit, I don't think he would have pulled it off. It just didn't seem authentic, so he was a bit weak in my mind. Not a leader, not a warrior, and he needs to buck up. I think he was a poor choice, but perhaps in the second one he'll come through. I mean, as a person, not just as an actor, he'll be maturing, so perhaps he'll rise to the occasion. Sardaukar, properly vicious, nasty people. The planet looks like a huge scale Vikings blood human sacrifice planet. Disturbing, much more authentic. This is how we would expect the Sardaukar to be, and also the Atreides troops were overwhelmed, but were not pathetic. I mean, they look like the experienced, competent troops of a regime that was running multiple planets. So much more authentic, and all the fight choreography better, looking much more realistic, up to date. It looked like a terrible war, not like a pantomime in the Lynch movie. Zendaya, I'm reserving judgment because I'm not sure she's properly cast, and I haven't seen anything great from her yet. So let's see. Maybe this is her time. Maybe this is where she's going to shine in the second part. We'll see. Particularly when we come to the scene with the drinking the water of life, where she expects him to die. So let's see how she does there. Open mind. SFX, etc., CG, what we'd expect, 21st century. The shield's much better. Everything of a higher standard. They retained the floating lights in the Atreides accommodation, which I think was a feature of the book, and that's been kept in there. Sign language was well done. I like that was remembered, included, and it was used in the relevant sections. I love the bagpipes for the Atreides, probably from my background, but it's extremely powerful. It's a motif as well as a strong emotional pull, unless you're one of those people that can't stand the sound of bagpipes. Yeah, so this film, damn good. Ornithopter's great. As a helicopter pilot, love them. A bit scary when they do things like folding the blades, the wings, but yeah, it's a different technology. Let's see. I believe Duncan Idaho is not dead. We're seeing some of Paul's inner cadre returning in various ways, and the Baron is menacing, is intelligent, is manipulative, is pretty evil. So that's a worthwhile adversary. So are we ready for part 2? Hell yeah, bring it on. And let's hope that Disney never has anything to do with this franchise and ruins it like the other one.
May thy knife chip and shatter.